He is back. He's the only one. The other storytellers are watching this. He's in back. He's nervous. And I've been trying to hold his hand and talk him through it. So let's hope everything goes well. After this, we will be taking our intermission. So ladies and gentlemen, this next storyteller was once a famous celebrity with a full head of hair. He now lives a secluded, bald life. But Rob, he's achieved one of the greatest honors an actor could ever do. He won an Oscar. It was for the annual Oscar Mayer hot dog eating contest. 63 dogs he won. He ate. Won the belt for that. Ladies and gentlemen, please make him feel really welcome because he's really nervous. Rob Trigg!
Oh, my fault, sorry.
The first time I thought I was going to die, I was on the tarmac in Helsinki, Finland, staring up at the big, beautiful Aeroflot airline. How many people fly Aeroflot, Russian Aeroflot airlines pretty regularly here? But all I could see was the steel belts showing through the bald tires. It was 1993, and I was flying to Moscow. The Iron Curtain had just been lifted. Mikhail Gorbachev had introduced the world to glasnost. It was a fancy little word that pretty much said we might be willing to talk now. And I was working at the #1 rock station in Phoenix, Arizona, and we were on a mission to show rock and roll to the Soviet Union. So Budweiser grabs the Rolling Stones, 4 winners, or actually 2 people that were employees and 2 contest winners from the top 25 rock stations in America. So about 100 of us, plus about a dozen tour guides and Budweiser reps. You know, organized chaos. But my job now was to climb the stairs onto this airplane. Now, how the hell was I going to get on this airplane? There was bald tires, there's no OSHA, there's no security briefing, there's no safety meeting. You just kind of climb aboard and hope. And you get in there, and you know the little slidey things for putting down the curtains? You know, it was like, no. They had homemade gray curtains that you would slide across. There was no fasten your seatbelt, no smoking, ding sign. No, it was a piece of acrylic with some Russian writing on it and a homemade, you know, a household light bulb behind it. I mean, I swear to God, this airplane must have retired in the 60s and never told anyone. And we had heard a lot of stories about these ex-military Russian pilots that now became commercial pilots, and we were sure that they weren't afraid to do a roll 360 right in the middle of the flight. And as we were about mid-flight, the attendants come down the aisle with real Russian caviar. Glamorous. Because nothing says trust our aviation like fish eggs in a little plastic cup. So we are flying and we're about to land in Russia, and all I can see is my fiery death. These bald tires land on the tarmac. The only thing I did know is that the pilot must have known this as well, because it was the smoothest landing I've ever been on in my life. And just as I'm about to clap that I'm still alive in Russia, all the cases of Budweiser we bought were stolen off into the black market. Welcome to the Soviet Union. Now we have to go through customs. And I don't know if they heard tourist or terrorist, but every time they would look at me, they would stamp in my face. Searching me over and tell me to go stand in that line, so I walk over to that line, and a Russian guard there with a club ready to knock me out. He'd stamp my form, and I'd go all over the place. We made it through this whole ordeal, and we finally spill out in the streets of Moscow. And we get to our hotel, the Hotel Kosmos. Of course, in Russian it says Kakmak. As we walk into the lobby, it smells like somebody died. And I look at the staff and they said, well, we think a cat got up into the vents. Oh, I'm thinking, I'm sure and pretty convinced that some guy named Yuri in room 312 had made his demise. And every time the HVAC comes on, it reminds me that I am going to die in Russia. So we do the whole tourist loop. We go on the Moskva River. We see Red Square. We even go to the first McDonald's, you know, a miracle of capitalism. And we get to Gorky Park and we see a circus in the middle of a thunderstorm. Yeah, metal poles going up into the sky. We're on metal bleachers. Safe? No. Exhilarating? Yes. Every time the lightning would break open the sky, I was thinking, I'm gonna die in Russia. So assigned to us was this tiny, serious woman from the Ministry of Tourism. And she was always watching us, always measuring what we were doing, shadowing us wherever we went. But my favorite person was the bus driver. His name was Ivan. Now, every time I got on the bus, since tipping was forbidden, I'd slip him a pack of American cigarettes, and he loved that. And we had our own little black market thing going on. He couldn't speak English, I couldn't speak Russian, but he sure told me when the KGB went, KGB, and they'd go by. So we're doing the tour, and the little old lady's telling us about building, gray building, ministry of this and that. And I finally said to her, I said, how come all the buildings look the same here? Well, in Russia, they tear out the inside of the building and leave the facade, so everything looks like it's from the 19th century. And of course, there's all the statues of their heroes with stern faces stuck in time, looking down upon you. So we kind of make it to the first night, the big party, the rock and roll people from all over Russia, and our Budweiser's gone, so I start drinking cheap Russian vodka. Like an idiot in a tragic comedy, I get on the wrong bus. I'm looking at this new bus driver. He can't speak English and I can't speak Russian. So as I turn to leave the bus, he starts shutting the door and I dive out, I get caught flat on my back in the middle of Moscow in the rain. And the only thought to me is that now the KGB is going to come and scoop me up and send me to a gulag in Siberia and work me to death in one of their work camps. So that thought alone got me up, and I went back into the bus and I sat down next to Ivan. I was pissed, angry, and drunk. But the little old lady said she lives in town, so she's going to stay here and your bus driver is going to see you on the way to your hotel. So I look at him, he looks at me, and I grab the microphone because I'm a disc jockey, that's what we do. And I give my own tour of the city of Moscow. Up on the right, a gray building. On the left, a gray building. On the right, another gray building. Well, everyone's cracking up in the bus, and it's 50-some drunk Americans, and they start asking questions. What do you do with drunk drivers in this town? We honor our drunks. Up on the right, our most famous alcoholic, Lenin. Everyone's laughing, the bus driver's laughing, he can't understand the thing I'm saying. He can't understand English, but you know who I think can understand English? The KGB. And it's 1993, Americans, I know they had some listening devices on that bus. Matter of fact, come to think of this, last time I saw Ivan, the next day we were supposed to go to the Kremlin. Now this is where they have the golden chariots, all the Tsar's treasures. The one thing you want to see if you're going to Russia. What I saw was the porcelain toilet as I was throwing up the rest of the time. So that was my end of my trip with Russia. So I flew out on Finnair, which had all the bells and whistles, and it was a great airline. And they took me all the way to New York. In the middle of the night, we land about 2 in the morning. And I'm walking up the gangplank after a 10-hour ride, and I give my American passport to the customs guy. He looks at it and kind of goes, okay, and hands it back to me. I said, well, where do I go next? You know, because I'm ready for stamps, guns, everything else. And his perfect New York accent, he goes, you see that wall up there? You go up to that wall. You take a right, you take a left. I don't care. Get out of here! So I'm walking up the plane. I'm back in America. I didn't die in Russia. I'm back in America. 30 years later, I received this letter in the mail. And I'm going to read it to you now. Just got this. Dear Rob, I'm finally out of the gulag. Because of the lung cancer, they let me out early. I want to come visit you in America and thank you for the cigarettes. Looks like I'm gonna die in America by a Russian.